showing a bit high. What is up, y'all? Today I'm going to be showing you how I do my Bareshaft tuning, and hopefully it's a good video. I have a new camera to show a different perspective, so hopefully that gives you a good idea of exactly how I go about it. We're going to try some heavier arrows out today, and yeah, I hope you enjoy. Alrighty, so we're starting out here. I'm going to get that blowtorch and a Bud Light. Getting moving on this project. So first thing, I got to get these old arrows. I've shot these before. I got to get the old inserts out, make sure I got the right size in, and little did I know that that was the right size. But first we're starting out with 50 grains, and then turns out I actually needed 75 grains on the insert, so we're going to get that in there here shortly. But this little camp stove from Ozark Trail, sold at Walmart, does very well at this. It's a lot better than just that nozzle that typically is on a propane torch. Got to trim off all these old fletchings. These are 3-inch shield cut, or 4-inch shield cut, and I went to 5-inch parabolic. And this is after I realized take a sip of beer there. I needed 25 grains extra per arrow, and put those in there. And the trick with these little 25 grain threadeds is to heat some of this blue glue into the threads and then tighten it down, and it'll keep them from rattling, because if you don't, then they'll get loose and rattle in there, and it is extremely annoying on an arrow setup to have that. Alrighty, so I'm going to show you how I Bareshaft tune these arrows. This is going to be a bit of a unique situation because they're already as short as I would ever put these. I wish I would have kept them longer, but didn't do that, and I'm not buying new shafts. So currently have 75 grains insert with a 150 grain point. And I'm probably going to go up to 100 grain insert, seeing how I've already shot these so far. But I'll show you a few tips and tricks, and hopefully the perspective helps a bit. I usually start out pretty close, just in case these things are real bad. I'm only probably 7 yards, and then go to my normal draw, and I just shoot 2 or 3 and see the results. So we are showing either somewhat decent, or if I underdraw as I did on this third shot, we're showing really stiff. But say I want to remind myself, am I stiff or am I weak of a spine? Here's a quick test that'll remind you and just show you the reality of how it looks. Here's my standard shot. Alright, so we're slightly off. And I'm like, am I stiff or weak? Quickest way to do it is to overdraw your shot and then shoot, and I'll see how that one's dead straight and perfect, and then I'll scoot over so we don't get them confused here, and I'll really overdraw. Now that I really overdrawed, see how perfect that is? That means I was slightly stiff. If I get in front of this one, I was slightly stiff on here, slightly weak, and then this one was really perfect. So I should only have to add about 25 grains of weight, and I think we'll be good. So let's go do that and see how it works. Alrighty, I added 25 grains to the arrow setups. Now we're going to see how the spine looks Bareshafted, and maybe I'll put some fletchings on these things today and we'll see how they fly. Still showing a little stiff. Alrighty, so one thing we can do is increase the brace height here. Give it 1, 2, 3 twists, because we're still showing a little stiff. Okay, so we doubled the distance here. Now we're going to take a shot and see how it looks. Showing knock low and stiff. Knock low, stiff. Moving that knock point up and up and up. Really stiff. The only way to straighten it out is to give it an extra, inch and a half of draw length. Now we're at about 13 yards. We're going to take a shot. Now this is where you run into knock tuning, which gets all fancy. The 3 I have here, these 2 curved like baseballs out of the way. This one was a little high. These 2 were perfect. I'll take these 2. Now I need to change these knock rotate these nocks just a little bit on these three, and we'll see how they shoot. And I usually just rotate them a little bit. So this one's a quarter turn different. Let's see how it shoots. I'll take it. So we're definitely showing stiff, but they're getting where they need to go, and I got 5-inch fletchings on these things for hunting arrows, which these are going to be. I'm not going to complain. Let's set them up. So this is my Bitzenberger jig, or whatever it's called. I use the helical fletching, and these are 5-inch parabolic fletchings. I use Harbor Freight super glue with this Hobby Lobby brand cyanoacrylate curing agent. It's a spray that goes on any super glue and cures it in seconds. You can see how quickly I can just pull it off of here. And look at that, ready to go. So got them all fletched up. Let's see how they shoot. Man, these things are slow. That one kicked hard. Alrighty, so the first group's not bad. Let's back up a little bit here. I seem to have missed. Don't look at that. That's not a real broadhead. God damn. So now I'm interested in seeing what my point on distance was for my last arrow setup, which was about 440 grains. This setup I think is right about 585, almost a 600 grain arrow out of a 50-pound longbow. And this thing is gonna be like shooting rainbows or shooting artillery or something like that. So let's take a shot and we'll see how it looks. Keep in mind my point on distance for my 440 grain arrows were 43 yards. So I think this is gonna be more about 30. So I'm gonna aim, for starters, right at the bottom of the 8 ring. That's not gonna be enough. I'm gonna aim at mid leg, right about the elbow of the leg. All right, yeah, this thing's lobbing in there. Too low. That was just me going off of my last point on. For a 30-yard group, I can't complain about that. I've always really liked these heavy setups. People talk me out of them. I talk myself back into them. Other people talk me into them. I talk myself out of them. All that stuff. Once I got that gap down, I mean, I'm only still a pretty good gap for how short these arrows are. I'm aiming, the tip of my arrow is going right at this wood at 30 yards. So I have like a 12-inch gap at 30 yards. But those three, that's a dead piggy. But that's kind of just this process of figuring out what is going to work with your setup and what you're comfortable with. Because I don't think I'm ever going to take a shot outside of 30 yards on an animal. This season I'm hoping it's going to be 20 yards in, and I'll hold off on any others. Because I'm going to be stalking pigs, and I could just get closer or let them get closer to me and hold off on any risky shots. I'm still not too confident, so. But alrighty, I appreciate you watching. Most of this was shot on this little Sony action cam here, so hopefully the video is decent. It's not the greatest quality, but it does give a good perspective. And I was really trying to show you the perspective of tuning arrows and about all the work that goes into it. These arrows were already used before, so it did take a little more time getting the fletchings off. But that arrow tuning chart on Three Rivers Archery really helps. And I set the arrows up to how I can make them work. And right now they're at like 585 grains. And they do fine within 30 yards. Outside of that, that drop off is hard and very evident. I'm still showing a little stiff of an arrow setup, but that is fine. We can make that work. For hunting, I would not take this out for like a 3D archery shoot you're trying to make money off of. But within 20 yards, I mean, you're killing a piggy. The penetration, this thing hits like a Mack truck compared to my 400 grain setups. But the 400 grain setups get there in a quarter of the time. I think I'm showing 158 feet per second on these arrows, and I think my 400 grain setup was 184 feet per second or something. So there's a difference, and it's a give and take. And depending on what you're hunting, depending on where you're shooting, I'd probably want either or, situational dependent. But
Anyway, I appreciate you watching. I'll see y'all later.